Welcome to the Roller Coaster Ride of Parenting podcast. I'm Jenny.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Susanna. And we'll be your hosts as we discuss the highs and the lows of the parenting journey.
We'll be having conversations based on the content from Susanna's book, A Childcare Expert's Guide to Enjoying Your Parenting. Throughout her time as a childcare owner and operator, Susanna has encountered many overwhelmed parents, and she wrote this book to encourage and equip them to be the best parents they can be.
This podcast is an opportunity to share more tips and tricks around the challenges that parents face. It's our hope that through our shared knowledge, experiences, and conversations, we help you to better embrace your parenting and enjoy your roller coaster ride. Welcome to the very first episode of the Roller Coaster Ride of Parenting podcast. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the unrealistic idea of being the perfect parent and how to overcome those expectations. We'll be referring to Susanna's book to guide our conversation, and we hope to encourage you to be the best parent you can be. I'm Jenny, and I'm here with my co-host, Ben.
G'day.
Hello.
So I guess, Jen, the two of us being here today, so we've known each other for a little while, but it'd be cool to introduce ourselves to the audience. Tell me a little bit about your parenting journey and what brings you here today.
Well, I guess I'm a parent in a different environment than I grew up in. I moved here from America about 15 years ago. I followed a really cute baseball player that I met at university to Australia from the tiniest town in the world, basically in Alabama. And we landed on the Central Coast probably about 10 years ago. So I guess for me, parenting and raising kids in a completely different environment than I'm used to has been a really big shift. And it's one of those things that I guess we've needed a lot of help. Like we've needed a lot of support. Susanna has been a lifesaver as far as amazing advice and being part of, a village and lots of different perspectives. So I guess I'm really happy to be a part of the conversation.
Awesome. So in hearing a bit about your backstory and why you're here, for me, I'm Susanna's eldest son. And not only am I her son, I actually work in our same family business, which is kind of a bit of a crazy thing. I was talking to a mentor of mine a couple of years ago, and at that stage, I was actually living with mum and dad with my family as well. And then he worked out that we also all go away on a family holiday for a week, and he was like bugging out that I would choose to work with, go on holidays, and live with my parents. And I guess my family, I'm the eldest of four, and we definitely have our challenges, but one of the things we've learned to do is to process and work through that stuff. And mum definitely deserves a bunch of credit for that. So I have three daughters, 9, 17 and 9, and now I'm just pumped to be here to learn how to be an even healthier parent, pick up some of the tips, talk to mum about some of the things she did wrong as a parent. I feel like this is a good format for that. But just to, really grow and to be able to encourage other parents, because this is the most rewarding but most challenging thing I think human beings get to do, being parents. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is really interesting because I think I love the way the Batemans are all do so much together, and you guys are all so different. And that's the thing that I think I love that though, because I think that's what I grew up in, as a village of all the aunties and all the different generations, and you live so close to each other that even if it's personalities that you don't quite get along with, they're there. You can't escape from them because you see each other all the time. So that village and that family and sometimes it's hard, but it's beautiful as well. So I think that's one of the things that I think is really attractive about watching you guys together. So I think over the years, Susanna has definitely given me a lot of parenting advice. And I think there's been a small crowd of people who have said to write a book for as long as I've known you. What made you want to write this book now?
Well, I think I came to a point in life where I realised that people were asking me to write a book. And so I thought, why not? I'm dyslexic, so it was one of the things that held me back from even thinking about writing a book. When people first asked me and suggested to write a book, I thought that was the strangest thing on the planet Earth. But I've got to the point in life where I thought, no, I can actually do this. And so, yeah, it's all about trying to help parents. And if I write a book, potentially I can help many more than just the ones that are in my world.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I look at the book, I love the tagline, which is "Stop trying to be perfect and embrace the roller coaster ride." That's definitely been my journey as a parent, ups and downs and round and round. So, tell me a bit about why that tagline. What speaks to you in writing that?
Well, I guess a roller coaster ride really does explain life in general, but particularly parenting, because going through parenting, we're going to have those highs where we feel absolutely fantastic, where we can see that what we're placing in our children is really helping them to develop into really happy, successful people children and adults who can live abundant lives. But then you also have on the other side, you have your moments where you go, oh my goodness, like, am I ever going to get this right? And it could be just when, depending on where you're at your stage in parenting, it could be the slightest little thing that your child does that will make you think, oh, am I ever going to get this right?
Mm.
And I guess one of the things for me about writing the book is as well is that in this roller coaster, my own roller coaster ride, I badly wanted somebody older than me, somebody who was further along the journey. They didn't have to be a lot older. But a lot older was fine with me as well. But somebody who could come alongside me and help me and give me advice. And I had my mum who lived a good 9 hours drive away from me. But once a week we would be on the phone together and she would give me advice. But it was long distance advice. And it's always good, I think, to have other people other than your parents.
Great advice. I like that advice. Yeah.
It's true. You do. Yeah. So it's good. So that's what I see. That's why I called it the roller coaster ride, because you will have your ups, you'll have your downs. When you're going down, it's like on a roller coaster. You feel like your stomach's in your mouth and will I get through this? Will I be okay? But then when you come up to the highs, you go, yep, I can do this. I can do this. So that's my description of parenthood.
I think that's one of the things I've always really appreciated about conversations with you is just that real honesty, because Ben and I are kind of a similar age, so we would probably have very similar kind of conclusions around what we should do, similar advice, similar perspectives. But it's really nice to have someone who, can say, oh, I tried that with child number 1, 2, that worked with grandchild number 5. Like that real, you've seen it and really honest. Because some of my favorite stories when I just went, oh man, today is not working. You would say, hey, let me tell you a story. This is how, I've really messed up and it was all okay. I'm trying to think of some fun examples. Can you think of any examples of when you felt really inadequate as a parent?
Well, I'm like every other parent. There are many times when I felt inadequate. One of the main ones, I think, where I struggled for quite a few years because I had so much pressure put on me by other people, because I honestly think the desire to do parenting perfectly is a natural thing. We naturally put a lot of that pressure on ourselves because we so badly want these beautiful children that are being given to us, this precious gift. We don't want to make any mistakes. We want them to have the best parenting they can have. But then you also have people, sometimes well-meaning, sometimes not so well-meaning people who are in your life that like to put the pressure on you and make you feel as if you're not doing it properly and they can do it better than you. And so I went through a journey with Ben, actually. He had a real challenge with eating different foods. And being my first child, I didn't know any different. And so breastfeeding was fine. But once we got onto solids, that's when the challenges came. And he was what in those days, because you're now been at 44. In those days, nobody knew anything about sensory eating. Everybody put it down to fussy eating or not being disciplined. And fortunately for Ben and for me, now when I look back, and I knew it when I had him, I had the same challenges as a child. There was lots of foods that I could not handle to eat at all. And so when he was going through this as a child, I had a particular friend, and I had, I don't want to say names, but I had a relative that was very, very close to me, and they were convinced that they were going to teach me how to teach Ben how to eat these foods, and how they were going to teach me how to discipline Ben so that he would eat these foods. Now, the majority of the time I was fine, and a couple of times both these two particular people said to me, I'll cook for him. When he eats my food, you'll see it'll work. And so I went, okay, go ahead, try your best, knowing darn well there was no way he was going to eat the foods they were asking him to eat. And he did have a very limited diet, but it was a healthy limited diet. And so sure enough, it didn't work for either of them. They both did it. One because she was a member of family, did it to me fairly regularly. Till in the end I went, no more. And I did have a few other friends that were very willing to tell me what I should be doing and how I should be making Ben eat these foods, and basically put it back onto my parenting. But, unfortunately, most of the time I was fine with it. But then at one stage, I did get to this, I think he was probably about 8, 9, maybe 10 by now, and still struggling with a lot of foods. And this particular friend, we went to their place for lunch, and they decided that they would make Ben. They told the children they couldn't leave the table. We were eating inside, the children were eating outside. So I didn't hear this conversation. I made sure Ben got the food that I knew he would eat. And this particular person then turned around and told all the children, you cannot leave the table till you've eaten every single thing on your plate, because he was going to help me see what mistakes I was making. We were having lunch, and I realised that all the other children were playing and Ben wasn't playing, which was very unusual because he was a super active child. And so I went out to see what was happening, and I'm like, what is happening, mate? And he says, well, Uncle so-and-so said I can't leave the table. I've finished what I've eaten. So I went inside and I said, Ben has eaten everything I've asked him to eat on his plate. He doesn't have to finish the rest, so I've released him to play. And I really don't appreciate you putting that pressure on him because he cannot eat those foods. But unfortunately what happened was, so there on the spot, I was fine. But when we went home, I then started to think, well, maybe it is my parenting. Maybe I am being too soft. Maybe he can eat it. And so Rob and I did something that I've always regretted, but fortunately Ben didn't even remember it. I've only reminded him as he's got older. And I apologised to him straight away after I did it. So Rob, my husband, he opened his mouth. I put the food in, and then Rob closed it, and we were going to make him chew it and swallow it, and then he just spewed it out the side of his mouth. He literally could not eat it, and his whole stomach was regurgitating, trying to get rid of it. And that's when I went, oh my goodness, what have I done? I've fallen into that trap of letting other people tell me, put pressure on me as to how I should be parenting. There's a big difference between somebody encouraging you and coming alongside of you and somebody really telling you how they think it should be done. Very big difference. And you don't let anybody tell you how they think it should be done. You go by your instinct, because as a mother or a father, you know.
Yeah, so hearing that story again, I really have no memory of that, of you forcing me. I actually have memory of the story before that night before, eating at our friend's house. I have a memory of that. I didn't like that guy much at all. But I think it's because I'd never felt like he actually listened or valued me. You'd taken me to a dietitian as a little kid. You were very clear about what I was allowed to eat. There was no sugar or anything fun in my diet. You're a very disciplined mum too. So it's interesting to think back that people thought you were soft. You were anything but a soft mum. So, yeah, it really pains me to hear that. But I've had just different stories in my life where I've felt pressure to be the perfect parent. Hasn't been around parenting. Eating. two of my kids have sensory eating. We know so much more about it now.
Yeah.
And I guess, again, with my challenges with eating, I eat a lot more food these days, but I've had to work really hard to make that happen. And I still have some sensory issues. But yeah, I definitely feel the challenge and the pressure that some people put on me at times. And I've also made mistakes with my kids around trying to force things at inappropriate times. I'm sure you haven't, Jen. You're like almost the perfect parent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there'll be some stories that will really showcase my perfect parenting. It is interesting, though, like when I think about what that perfect parent looks like. And I've often said to my husband, it's really interesting parenting in a different culture and the pressure that you put on yourself. And I'm actually really thankful in a lot of ways because everybody here is different than me. You know, so the culture is different, the parents are different. So there's not necessarily a way I should do things.
Okay.
But it's very much a way, okay, so I can take that from like the culture that I grew up in. I can take some from the culture here. And it's probably seeking out advice from people. Like, I like the way you guys parent. I like the advice that you've given me, Susanna. So instead of having you come up to me and say, you should really be thinking about this. The difference is going, oh, I love the way your kids have turned out. And I love the way you're honest. So I would want to ask you for advice and I can take that in. Because it's funny, like people often say that perfect parent, but do you think that even exists?
Well,
that majestic beast.
Yeah, that majestic being of a perfect parent.
Well, you see, the funny thing is, I actually do think there is such a thing as a perfect parent. But that parent is the one that knows they're going to make mistakes. And that parent is the one that will apologise to the children for their mistakes, no matter how old they are. And that parent is the one that will learn from the mistakes, and the parent that really doesn't let themselves be under pressure from everybody else to do it their perfect way. Because I find it interesting, Jen, that you say, you know, like you take a bit from here and a bit from there. And that's the thing. No one's got all the answers, but there's many people out there with answers. But even if we think we have the answer, we have no right to be telling somebody else how to parent their children. It's very, and like I said before, it's very different if someone asks for your advice, but none of us have any right to judge another person's parenting because you don't know what it's like. I was very blessed because my mum used to say that to me. Mum used to say to me, don't ever judge somebody else's parenting because you don't know what it's like to raise that particular child. That parent knows what it's like. So, yeah, don't judge them. And I found, like, with 4 children and now with 12 grandchildren, you have to parent and grandparent differently for every single child because they're all different. So there isn't a secret formula. You just got to do your best, and when you make a mistake, have the courage to say you've made a mistake, not knock yourself over the head, but learn from that mistake and go forward from there.
I think that's one thing I really did pick up from you guys was not to put too much pressure on myself. We've mucked around with my older 2 who are 17 and 19 since they were in their mid-teens and told them we'll pay for a couple of $1,000s worth of counselling vouchers each and they can go work through the mistakes I've made. But I think from Nell, my wife, and I to go, we're not perfect parents and that's okay. We're going to give it our best shot and actually relax about that. And that's the best I can do. That the best thing I can do is give it my all and what will be will be.
Well, the reality is too, I think, that when our children realise that we're okay with making mistakes, not that we deliberately make mistakes by any stretch of the imagination, we try not to make the mistakes, but when we make the mistakes, it's okay. Well, then we're teaching our kids, our children, that we're not expecting them to be perfect either. We're letting them know that they can make mistakes and the mistakes will actually make them stronger, not weaker.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important thing. And I think, unfortunately, there's in the past has been this fear of parents admitting that they've made a mistake. I actually, when you were younger, I actually had people say to me who are my age and we're all parenting together, you can't let them know that you've made a mistake because that will undermine your authority with them. Well, actually, it increases your authority because it increases the child's belief in you and it increases the child's belief in your love for them and that you'll love them whether they get things right or whether they get things wrong. And you'll be totally unconditional around it. Because it's amazing how unconditional children are with their love for us. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting for me in my mid-teens working out that my friends' parents didn't apologise, and just hearing the frustration from the guys as well around that. That maybe, I mean, I was a teenager, so I only appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't until my 20s I went, oh, wow, you know, that was a really powerful thing that you did for us. But they already know you've made a mistake. They know you've messed up.
Yeah.
They know you've messed up.
Exactly.
The apology is just a mending of that relationship. It's actually being humble enough, I think, in some ways to go, hey, I don't have it all together, and I don't need to appear to have it all together to be in a relationship with you. I'm still your parent. That still stands. We still need to move forward. I still need to be disciplined and to hold you accountable. But I can say sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm going to mess up.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable in front of your children. However, what it does is it builds courage in them, because then they're free to be who they are. They're free to be authentic. And let's face it, if you're not free to be authentic, then you're not free to really reach your full potential in life. And one of the biggest ways of teaching your children the value of being authentic and being happy with who they are is helping them understand that they can make mistakes and they're still absolutely amazing.
So into that reflection, that such a good example, like for me, like when I think about parenting, that's such a good example of someone putting pressure on you to do something differently, and then you kind of swing your parenting. Like, I feel like that's when I've made more mistakes or things that I regret, is when I tried to do something that didn't feel comfortable.
Yes.
It didn't feel right, but someone shamed me or told me that I should have been doing it differently. And it was a reaction. And it was one of those things that I was a little bit too strict, or I was a little bit too harsh, or held food in my child's mouth. You know, all those things. That's so real. That happens all the time. And it's hard. I love how sassy you are with going, actually, no. Like, I'm the mom. I'll make this call.
Yeah. And that is easier done with some people than others. So my member of my family that put the pressure on me was harder, because she was older than me, and I needed to treat her with respect, but at the same time let her know. I let her try to experiment with Ben a few times, and then after that for her it was also a no. I know, like, you've tried it, it hasn't worked. It's actually making things worse for him. So I don't want you to do that anymore. He will eat the things that he can eat, and he will slowly and surely, because a dietitian told me how to help him increase the amount of things that he could eat, and it was working slowly, but it was working. So I just pointed that out and let that particular person know, no, there's no more. So, but you have to do it in a respectful way, but firm, and you have every right. You're the mother or the father, or you're the person who's raising the child.
I remember one time, it's kind of with your first child. I mean, I only have two. So Max is 8 and Izzy is 6.
Yeah.
And they're the most polar opposite children you can possibly get. But I know with Max, you don't know. Like, you really don't know. And that confidence, like, you need people to tell you that, to tell you that it's okay. I remember one time I took them to the doctor, and I was kind of almost apologizing to the pediatrician. I just went, oh, I think, but you're the expert, you know, like, this is what I'm saying. And I remember he stopped me in my tracks and he said, oh, you actually stop.
Yeah.
You are this child's mother.
Yeah.
You are with this child all the time. He said, I'm going to listen to what you have to say more than anyone else in the world. You are the expert on this child. And it was this weird, like, I remember sitting there and I was kind of apologizing. I think I put my shoulders back. I was like, okay, I am. But you need people who you respect to say that to you, to speak that confidence into you.
Yeah, you do. And that's what I'm always telling parents. You know this child more than anybody else does. So instinctively, you know what is best for this child. However, sometimes we all need a bit of support on how to draw that out in our own thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and I can remember when Ben's sister, Anna, came along 3 years after him, and she ate anything you put in front of her, oh, man, it was such a relief. I'm like, yes, it's not my mothering, it's not my cooking, it's none of those things that these people said it was. It is actually, well, we didn't know it was sensory eating, but I used to think to myself, he's the same as me. I had trouble eating as a kid. He has trouble. He'll get over it. I got over it. He'll get over it. And now when we have grandchildren that have those same challenges, everybody has a completely different attitude towards it. And we're able to speak into them as well. It's okay. You're going to get through this, because it's actually not easy for the child either. And as they get older, it becomes even more awkward for them. And because we've been through it, we can say, you know what, it's fine. You're going to overcome this. And look, to this day, there's things that you put them in front of me, there's no way I'm going to eat them, because I know that my system can't cope with them. It might be through smell, it might be through texture, it might be through taste. It's not fussy eating. It's actually a sensory challenge. And yes, we can, as we get older, teach ourselves how to overcome it. But it's not even just about sensory eating. It's about anything where you're having a challenge as parents. There's all sorts of different reasons why children react and respond to things. It's not black and white, but we like to think life's black and white and parenting's black and white, because then we're going to make less mistakes. It comes back to that perfection thing again. If it's black and white, we can know what to do and what not to do. Well, you know what? Life doesn't work like that, and particularly parenting doesn't work like that. So the challenge I'm talking about is sensory eating, but it could be any number of challenges. And that's why we as parents, when the children aren't our children, we don't understand that child. We have no right to judge that child or that other person's parenting.
Which is a challenge in itself. I remember when being the eldest and I had little kids and my siblings didn't, and just the look of judgment on their face as my kids are having a wobbly. So it was amazing as they had their own kids, watching their kids chuck wobblies too. But it is hard. Sometimes as a human being, you're like, if I was their parent, I'd do this. Or if I was their parent, I still do it sometimes. I catch myself being that arrogant dad. But that child or that parent probably just has different, as if I step back, they've just got different challenges to what I had with my children or in my own parenting. But often the things I find it easy to judge others around with their parenting too.
Can I encourage you that actually it only becomes arrogant when you keep hanging on to that judgment? Because I think it's completely human. It's natural that we're going to have those thoughts come, oh, I would do this or I would do that. But when you then make yourself stop and go, actually, it's not my child. I'm sure that parent's doing the best they can. I don't totally know that child, they do. But when you go past that too, and I'm going to help them know how to parent them, or you keep on judging, that's when the arrogance comes in. So again, let's stick to the grey rather than the black and white, because it's not straight out arrogant. We all do it. There's not a person on the planet Earth that doesn't think that at some stage when they see a child react or whatever, you can't help but think, oh, I would do such and such. But just zip the mouth and realise that it's not your child and they're doing the best they can. That person's doing the best they can. And look, there's so many children with special needs that don't necessarily, they might be high functioning with special needs, so they don't necessarily come across in front of you as if they are a special needs child. And so the behaviour can be all based around that and have nothing to do with being disobedient or being a difficult child, just trying to be difficult to get on with. We have to fortunately, society's learning more about that, but we're a bit slow catching on.
I think that's a really interesting thing though. Like when I often talk about, like I always look for that village. Like I often look for that community. I think because I grew up in such a tight-knit community and far from perfect, but everybody's like finds something easy and everybody finds something really challenging. Yeah. And it is kind of like, it's almost like going, oh, you're really great at that. Like, let me ask you, how on earth would you do that? Because I don't find that easy. Like that's a real strength in your parenting that I don't have. So then you almost have that amazing safety net for kids where Uncle Ben's great at that. Auntie Susanna's great at that. They can ask you, and it really gives them a lot of balance. Where I think a lot of families, especially when we moved to Sydney, so many families are doing life very isolated. Like they go to work, they come home, and the kids don't have that variety of perspectives and people who do things really well, and that difference. So I don't know. I think that maybe if you do nail it on some things and have a little bit of arrogance, I would love that. Like rub off on my children a little bit.
No, I think that's a beautiful thing, being part of a bigger family. So there's the 12 grandkids and the 4 of us. And then, I definitely been very active in looking for people that have strengths in their parenting that I don't. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful point you're making, Jen. It's really cool. So, Susanna, what advice would you give to, 70 now, like you've got a lot of...
Almost.
Almost. So it's 69 and a little bit. What kind of advice would you give to parents coming through that might be new to this or in the throes of where parenting is tough and feel like they aren't the perfect parent and might feel like they're even drowning a little bit as a parent?
Okay, I guess, obviously my first thing would be relax, believe in yourself, believe in your child, and enjoy the roller coaster ride rather than trying to just make it on highs and try and avoid the lows, because the lows are there, they're part of life. And actually, the funny thing is that the lows do make us stronger and our children stronger. I don't know why we try to avoid them. I tried to avoid them when I was younger. If I had realised the value in them when I was younger, I wouldn't have tried to avoid them so much. I would have actually embraced them and helped my children and myself learn a lot more from them. And I guess that would be my first tip. But also, I've got my tips in the book are very uncomplicated. I'm an uncomplicated person. So they're complicated, they're uncomplicated, they're simple, but I know they work because I've seen them work for my children, my grandchildren, and for other people that have put them into place. So be simple. Be simple. Don't complicate it. Just believe in yourself, believe in your children, and you'll do an amazing job.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having this conversation with us today, to learn a little bit more about you and to have this conversation about being the perfect parent. So I guess for you, Jen, what was something that you took away from today or that you might be able to implement, do you think?
Oh, I think just simple and relax and just kind of enjoy the ride, I guess. I think sometimes we get so high strung about doing everything well, but that ability to just, be free. Apologize to your children when you get it wrong. Really enjoy it. I think I always say, I'm like, this is definitely my favorite season. And then the next one, oh no, this is definitely my favorite season. And they're all hard. There's challenges in all of them. But I think that's the thing that I've really enjoyed about watching you parent and just being so encouraging in that.
Awesome. That's great to hear that reflection on enjoying the different seasons and knowing the different things are going to come up. Definitely for me, hearing some of the stories today, and as a young parent, but especially now, knowing that transitioning with my teenage daughters, it's that I can enjoy every season. That it's going to be a different roller coaster. We're on the next roller coaster now, but that there's the opportunity and the hope that comes on with knowing that I can enjoy the roller coaster that is the parenting ride. So I guess what have we got coming up next? What's our next topic, Jen?
So our next episode is going to be all about all the fears that we have as parents and how to tackle those, with a lot of insights from Miss Susanna.
Awesome. So thanks for listening today. We've really enjoyed this conversation. We hope you have too. And remember to enjoy your roller coaster ride.